Hello and welcome. You're watching Arts TV Weekly News Review with me, Peter Nash. Each week we'll be bringing you major news items from across Ethiopia and the region. In a letter submitted to the United Nations Security Council through the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ethiopia has called again on Egypt and Sudan to accept the authority of the African Union to preside over the Renaissance Dam negotiations. Ethiopia reiterated its belief that this process would abide by the principle of African solutions for African problems. The Deputy Prime Minister and Foreign Minister, Demeke Mekonnen, has pointed out that Egypt and Sudan have deliberately disrupted the negotiations to draw negative international attention and exert unwarranted pressure on Ethiopia. Mr. Demeke also added that Ethiopia maintains an unwavering commitment to the tripartite agreement led by the African Union. He expressed his appreciation to South Africa and the DRC for supporting the AU process and for their efforts in mediating between the three countries. The letter submitted to the Security Council set out Egypt and Sudan's unwillingness to appoint representatives to observe the second filling of the dam. It further expressed Egypt and Sudan's illegitimate claim to the total water usage. It concluded this was unacceptable to Ethiopia and called upon the two countries to return to the negotiations to find a mutually beneficial deal. In a related development, Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok indicated that the negotiations held so far were unsuccessful. Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed, in his reply, refuted this and pointed out that the signed principles of agreement and the establishment of an impartial scientific research team were clear indications of success. He cited legal and technical challenges which were preventing an agreement being reached that could make everyone winners. Dr. Abiy once again expressed his commitment to see the negotiations continue under the umbrella of the African Union. The Ethiopian Diaspora Agency announced that a policy revision is underway to allow them greater participation in the development of Ethiopia. It was said, rather than just goodwill, a well-documented policy should be drafted to enable all interested Ethiopians living abroad to take part in their country's development. The policy revision is being carried out by the agency in collaboration with 4 universities, Jimma, Hawassa, Jigjiga and Wollo. The agency has organised discussion forums within the 4 universities to produce policy and strategy action points. The Deputy Director of the Ethiopian Diaspora Agency, Dr. Mohammed Idris, said that there are more than 3 million Ethiopians living abroad who could be doing much more to help the development of their country, and that more is expected of them. The Deputy Director noted there are often legal and bureaucratic hurdles which inhibit diaspora participation. He hopes that the policy revisions will go some way to addressing this and allow greater input from them in the future. In a recent statement, the Ethiopian Broadcast Agency said it is introducing guidelines and frameworks which will help govern illegal and incorrect messages being released by social and mainstream media. Director of the authority, Mr. Mohammed Idris, signalled that social media has huge potential to establish a well-informed society, but this potential is not being properly utilised. This is in due partly, he said, to the social media sector being relatively new. It is imperative, he went on to say, that the sector is managed by a proper legal framework, enabling it to be a tool for social and economic development. The broadcasting agency noticed that the guidelines were being drafted along similar lines to their other legislations at international and local levels. Clarifications were given to questions and concerns raised regarding the strength and limitations of the draft guidelines. The various suggestions given in reaction to the statement have been recognised as valuable inputs for future drafting. International Clinical Laboratories launched a programme this week which will administer 50,000 COVID-19 tests to people in the Tigray region at a cost of around 84 million birr. The institution started the testing last week in collaboration with the Tigray Region Health Bureau and Mekelle Hospital. For those citizens unable to afford the test, they are being provided for free. The testing programme is said to be an effective way to curtail the spread of the virus. They also promise to provide full follow-up care to those who test positive. The laboratory dispatched 110 staff to the area, along with all the necessary lab equipment. Plans are being drawn up to extend testing to other areas of the region, in collaboration with non-governmental organisations operating there. In more vaccine news, research partners from the UK revealed that an effective malaria vaccine has been trialled in Burkina Faso in West Africa. It is the first time a vaccine with more than 75% success rate has been produced. Malaria causes around 2 million deaths annually. Those most severely affected by malaria are children, who account for well over 70% of mortality. In Ethiopia, malaria is the leading transmittable disease and causes around 35,000 deaths per year, mostly in children under 5 years old. The new vaccine, which could save a large proportion of these, is set to enter its third trial phase in the coming weeks. Professor Charlemagne, Ministry of Health in Burkina Faso, said, "Malaria is one of the leading causes of childhood mortality in Africa. This new vaccine could be extremely important for controlling malaria and saving many, many lives." Ethiopia's Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed held discussions this week with presidents of all regional states, 2 municipal administrations and the National Election Board on the progress of electoral registration. During the discussions, he said that the only way to get legitimate power is through democratic, representative and peaceful elections. In a related development, it was disclosed that although the registration of voters was not as high as expected, it has been gaining steam and going well, especially for the past 2 weeks. What is more, the Ethiopian Election Board announced that the registration deadline has been extended, which will allow even more people to obtain their voting cards. As of last Friday, recent figures show that the highest voter registration zone is Addis Ababa city with 88%, with the lowest being the Somali region with just 43%. The chairperson of the National Election Board, Burtukan Medeksa, pointed out that the voters' registration has been rapidly increasing in the past few days. The Prime Minister has urged the public to exercise their constitutional rights and get their election cards before the registration period ends. In a recent statement, St Paul's Hospital in Addis Ababa announced it is becoming nearly impossible to treat the increasing numbers of COVID-19 patients due to an acute shortage of oxygen. The hospital also disclosed that it is no longer able to supply other hospitals in the area, which it had been doing up until the past few days. The facilities engineer at the hospital expressed his concern that if the problem continues, it will be unable to admit patients needing oxygen treatment. He urged the public to understand the disturbing trend and exercise maximum care to decrease the exposure to the virus. The Prosperity Party's Amhara Region Women's Network announced that various plans are being carried out to ensure women play their part in the upcoming general and local elections in June. As per the information given to the Ethiopian news agency, wide-ranging efforts are underway to make sure women exercise their rights to vote and, moreover, to stand in the election themselves. The spokesperson said that women with educational backgrounds of second degree and above, and who show an active interest, are being nominated as election candidates at different levels. She also said there is a plan to increase the proportion of women at the federal parliament from 20 to 30%. And for the regional parliaments, it is planned to increase the proportion of women even more, from 35 to almost 50%. The research company Armau Hansen Research Institute has started producing new coronavirus testing kits in Ethiopia in collaboration with Oregon Health Science University. It was reported that this will enable the country to strengthen local testing capacity and to save hard currency spent on purchasing the kits internationally. Researcher at the institute, Dr. Tesfaye Gelanor, explained that the kit is different from others in that it can process several specimens at one time. The equipment, he said, takes specimens from blood, saliva and the nose and is capable of testing and identifying people with or without symptoms. A call was made to Ethiopian intellectuals and Ethiopians living abroad to collaborate to make the locally manufactured kit for international markets. And finally, to some sports news. In the Ethiopian Premier League, Fasil Kenema Football Club, based in Gondar, looks set to soon be crowned champions of the 2021 season. They are currently 13 points ahead of their closest rivals, Ethiopian Coffee, but a win next week against Adama Kenema would give them an unassailable lead, with Mr. Seyum Kebede guiding them, who was recently described by a Supersports commentator as a wily old coach. They look set to win the league for the first time in their history. With their nickname the Emperors, it looks almost certain they will soon be ruling Ethiopia's top domestic league. That is all from me from Arts TV Weekly News Review. Thanks for joining and see you next time.